Without a doubt, Star Wars is one of the most influential franchises of all time. The epic space opera spans decades of movies, games, books, and every other form of merchandise there is. Everyone has their own story about how they were introduced to Star Wars. Some queued for hours to see it when it first came out in 1977, some read the comics or saw the original trilogy on video. Well, for me, this was my introduction to Star Wars. Star Wars Rebel Assault was released by LucasArts on PC CD-ROM in 1993, the first game that they released on that format. You filled the shoes of Rookie One, a character suspiciously similar to Luke Skywalker, but deliberately kept anonymous to allow the player to feel like they were playing as themselves. This was before advanced character creation tools were around, so we had to make do. The story sees you joining a squad of rebel pilots, attacking a Star Destroyer, liberating Mos Eisley, getting chased through an asteroid field, fighting off the Empire on Hoth, so they're not really carrying much of continuity, and spending several levels attacking the Death Star. At first glance, this game looks like an early 3D flying game, similar to the X-Wing and TIE Fighter games, but they're actually full-motion video games. These were very popular in the 90s once CDs became a gaming format, but it means you're stuck travelling in one direction with very little room to manoeuvre. You're only able to move slightly to avoid certain obstacles and shoot at targets, so it sort of creates the illusion of a 3D world before it was properly achievable. The first-person cockpit view is just one of 4 perspectives the game puts you in. There's also a third-person rear angle, a top-down perspective, and one level that turns the game into an on-foot third-person cover shooter. You're not able to switch camera angles though, each stage has one predetermined perspective that you're forced to play from. Unfortunately, the game suffers from some atrocious controls that really spoil the experience. The first-person levels are quite sluggish, and by contrast the third-person flying levels are overly sensitive, with the slightest movement sending the craft lurching all over the place, and probably into a wall. I did play with a mouse, so I don't know whether a joystick would be easier to use. The Imperial probe droid level in the Ice Cave is particularly infuriating, as you need to memorise a maze in addition to dodging and shooting everything else. These third-person flying levels can rot in the Sarlacc's stomach. Your health bar depletes far too quickly, and once you run out of lives, it's game over. Fortunately, the game awards you extra lives after scoring a certain number of points, and there is a password system that allows you to start the game after some levels, but not all of them. After you've played the same stages a few times, it gets easier to remember where everything you need to avoid is coming from. So bring a scrap pad and a pencil, because you'll need it. The music is a compressed version of the soundtrack from the movies, and it sounds good for the time. The tracks are all recognisable, and they fit the stages quite well. Unfortunately, that's where the positives of the presentation end. The graphics may have looked amazing upon release, but god, they haven't aged well. Some of the stages are so pixelated and blurry that it's difficult to distinguish between what you're supposed to avoid and what's just for decoration, which leads to many wasted lives. The in-game cinematics are mostly still images with bits of animation, all compressed to fit on the CDs, so the quality really suffers. The same can be said of the clips taken straight from the movies. And while the music sounds as clean as it does in the films, the same cannot be said of the voice acting and sound effects. The recording sounds scratchy and as if they're peaking all the time. People might defend this game with the statement I've used a couple of times: it was good at the time. And yes, it was good at the time, but there is a difference between something that's old school and something that's just old. And sadly, Rebel Assault fits into the latter. There is a level of challenge involved, and it is rewarding when you finally complete a level after many tries, but those moments are outweighed by the frustration you'll be pushing through to reach them. I'd only really advise you play this game today if you had it when you were younger and are just looking for a nostalgia trip, and even then that might taint your memories of it. So, there are my thoughts on Star Wars Rebel Assault. Feel free to subscribe, check out the links, visit the site for more cool stuff. Thank you for watching.